Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinberg. Today we're going to have a special Halloween edition of Drawing with Fountain Pens.
Whose hand was I holding?
How many of us take seriously the things we cannot or do not want to understand, simply because we are afraid?
And just in time for Halloween, I have the Ghost Pen that was designed by Jamison Odone and with the help of Sean Newton, who then executed it, of NewtonPens. Sean is an amazing pen maker, and Jamison, who I've known for over really 20 years. When I first met him, I was always calling him Jamie, so forgive me if I sometimes say Jamie. And Sean, who Jamison introduced me to recently, are friends, so truth in advertising. But I bought this pen. It was not inexpensive. It was $400. So, and they didn't pay me to advertise it or plug it. I was pleased to support this project. Part of the expense of the pen is that it has a custom-made clip that was cast. So the drawing was made by Jamison, and then based on that drawing, Sean made this wonderful, CAD images, I guess is the right word, 3D images that then were made into a mold that then had to be made into this clip. The clip itself it is quite tight, so I would not recommend wearing this in your t-shirt pocket. I mean, it will sort of, you can kind of get it into it, but it really is more to be looked at. It has a marvelous feature though, which is sort of equivalent to what they call in the programming world an Easter egg. If you want to see the clip separately, it really actually just the top screws off fairly easily. And then you see this marvelous workmanship. And then on the other side, it says, there you go, it says RIP 2023. And that's kind of sweet that it has this little, it's like a little tombstone. But I don't know of any pen that has that. I know that Mont Blanc pens, later 149s, have a little marking on them that's supposed to defeat counterfeiters, but of course never made any sense to me because the counterfeiters know about that. They also, of course, Sean cast the ring. It is in this beautiful ghostly acrylic that looks like glass, really. And when you open it up, you see that it has a converter and it has a Jovo, in this case, stub nib. It does post, but when it posts, it's not just very big, but it's also because the cap clip is so heavy, it becomes really heavy off weighted pen. I would not post it if I was using it to write. It actually writes very beautifully. You can see ink, I've just got some ink on it. One of the advantages of having a pen made by Sean, I mean, he works on a lathe to create this shape. So it's really handmade, is that he tunes the pen for you, and it writes, when we do the writing sample, you'll see that it writes really, really well. When you first get the pen, it comes in this marvelous sleeve designed by and made by Sean's wife, Elizabeth, or Liz, and then the pen can come out like a ghost coming out of its coffin.
What a filthy job.
Could be worse.
How?
Could be raining.
this sleeve has all these, it has ghosts and it has gravestones and little pumpkins. It's very, very spooky. It's a very large pen. Classic comparison is to looking in comparison to the Mont Blanc 149, and you can see that it actually is a little bigger than the 149. And recently I reviewed the Jinhao 9019, which is called the Dado, which means giant pen. And you can see that it's similarly sized. Maybe it's a little narrower than that pen. This pen is a kind of homage to the Namiki or Pilot Emperor pen. And so that gives you kind of an idea of the size of it. It feels really good in the hand though when you write with it, and it's very substantial, much more substantial than the Jinhao pen, which is made out of a kind of very light acrylic. This is very much heavier acrylic, and of course it's meant to evoke a ghost. And the whole concept of the ghost is really, really interesting in the history of literature, and particularly of film, because we have friendly ghosts and we have scary ghosts.
Sick. Sexual perversion. If you guys are gonna do that weird sexual stuff, do it in your own bedroom.
And we have funny ghosts.
Now stay close. Stay close. I know. Do exactly as I say. Get ready. Ready? Get her!
And I think that's kind of marvelous. The other part about the design, of course, is that the clip itself that Jamison made is based on his love gravestone designs, that particularly colonial New England type designs, and his take on that. I think also he's an artist. I met him when we were both living in Richfield, and we participated in a drawing sessions with the great artist Maurice Sendak, and an artist that I think Jamison likes and I like, and Maurice Sendak knew, was friends with, is Edward Gorey. So I think this also is evokes Gorey's work a bit. Yeah, Gorey's probably most famous for doing the animation for the introduction to PBS Mystery, and often doing very sort of humorous takes on Gothic novels and Gothic stories and mysteries, and as an element which I think this pen suggests.
And by the annual financial support from viewers like you.
The ghost, though, also to me suggests a really famous sort of landmark design chair designed by the great designer Philip Stark, called the ghost chair, and the idea of a functional object that has a kind of almost invisibility like a ghost, or you could say you can see through it like a ghost, because the classic ghost is either shape-wise sort of wearing a sheet over his or her head, or the classic ghost is translucent. You can see through the ghost, and that I think is part of the element of ghosts, although there are all kinds of ghosts, as in The Sixth Sense.
I see dead people.
Right? The ghosts there only appear to some people and not to other people. Or there is the great ghost from Hamlet, the ghost of Hamlet's father, right? So sometimes ghosts are said to be inventions of our mind or of our subconscious or of guilt. So that's interesting. I would put this in the category of friendly ghosts, ghosts like Casper the Friendly Ghost. There's
Oh, Birdie!
And so, Casper and Ferdy lived happily ever after.
a sweetness to this pen, and it also reminds me that in the 19th century, graveyards were often places that people used functions as parks. New Haven, for example, has a very famous cemetery, the Grove Street Cemetery, and it is a lovely place to walk through on a beautiful Sunday. So the sort of notion of the cemetery as a creepy place, terribly frightening place, in some ways is a creation of Hollywood horror movies. There is the other idea of going to the cemetery to visit your relatives and to find actually comfort there. One of the benefits of knowing the makers of this pen is that I was able to interview them. And I was particularly interested sort of in how they came to be part of this sort of fountain pen obsession. How does an artist like Jamison, who makes wonderful pictures and picture books, how does he come to use fountain pens? Is that something that he uses in his art? Or does he just write with them? And then even in a way more unusual is how does someone become a maker of fountain pens? And Sean is and was an artist and gravitated to making pens. So I was able to ask them questions.
Well, in 2010, on Valentine's Day, my wife bought me a very cheap fountain pen from Hobby Lobby. Before that, I had no idea that they were a thing that existed. And I was always a pen and ink artist. I filled up sketchbooks constantly, just always drawing and doodling and scribbling. But something about that first fountain pen really grabbed me, and I was hooked. And then, just continued to research and buy and I learned more about them.
What do you remember what kind it was?
Yeah, it was a Schaefer Viewpoint with the fine italic nib.
So I think since college, I've done a lot of pen and ink work, and I've always liked my supplies. And then, so I used a lot of Koh-i-Noir rapidographs to do my drawings. Okay. And those are really tough and unpredictable, and the ink turns into coal, and you can't travel with them. And the first one I ever got was a Noodler's, one of the like inexpensive Noodlers, and Noodler's ink. But now I really like Diatramentis archive ink for like all the work that I do. And yeah, the last 2 books ago, I illustrated this. Actually, a couple books back, I illustrated this book called what's it called? Always Share Your Iceberg, right? And there's all these quotes
with the penguins.
And I illustrated that with one of Sean's pens. This one. This is pure coincidence that I have it right here. But then for the book after that, I started like playing with other pens, and then I got a couple Twisbys, and I got a Twisby Eco, and I just really liked the line quality, and it wasn't leaking all that much, so I thought I could try inking with that. So I did this next book, which was a graphic novel called The Man in the Painter's Room. It's about Vincent van Gogh. I don't know, I really like I just like the way that they feel when I draw with them or when I write with them. And so I don't know if you want to call it love, but I appreciate good art supplies the older that I get. And I found that I also really enjoy like the process of making art and not just the end product. For me, it's not just always about like making something. It's about the process of sitting there with a piece of paper and ink and doing something. So I've found that I get much more enjoyment out of that process when I'm using a fountain pen than when I'm using something less cool.
Yeah. So
yeah,
Sean, so there's a big leap. So there you're making art and suddenly you want to use a fountain pen. How did you suddenly start making fountain pens. That's a huge leap.
In everything, whether it was with the house or with my cars or just whatever, if I was gonna get something done, I was gonna have to do it myself because I could never afford to have someone else, come and do it for me. And that poured over into pens because when I learned that making pens in your garage was a possibility, I found custom pen makers on Fountain Pen Network back in 2010, 2011. I wanted to try my hand at that. And so I did, and it kind of took off for me. But yeah, I've always been a maker. I built furniture, not great furniture. I've been able to do work on things. So this really helps scratch that itch, making my own pens too.
I'm so glad that you make your beautiful fountain pens. So then so let's talk about the ghost pen. What's the inspiration? Why did you decide to make the ghost pen?
Do you remember that this was originally called the shipwreck pen?
Yeah, I remember I said the drawings are probably an email somewhere.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about this. So we had originally just wanted to do a project together, and I was like, and Sean was like, "What would you want to do?" And I think I was reading a book about like maritime disasters, and I was like, "Oh, shipwreck pen." So I had done this little drawing of like a shipwreck, and then I don't know, so that was like 2017, and then I think it was not like on the front burner for either of us. It's just like a thing, and then pandemic happened a few years later, and then I think we kind of reapproached it, and I was like, let's do something different. So I think it was for me, it was sort of open-ended from you, and so at that time, I think I had gotten all these books about old New England gravestones.
Yes.
Kind of wanted to come up with an idea of based for the clip of it. I wanted to come up with something that was sort of based on that, something a little, macabre, a little spooky, just kind of the stuff that I grew up around in New England. And so then we started thinking about, more and more ideas of what it could be, what it could look like, what colors it could be. And then I had seen a pen somewhere that was sort of opaque white, and it looked like a ghost to me. So I thought, well, maybe we could call it ghost pen. And then I passed the designs on over to Sean, and he went to work.
Well, I think I asked you to do a tall vertical drawing that I could use for the clip, right?
Right.
Yep.
And then once I had that, I think I just looked at some of his other stuff that was kind of ghosty related. I really liked his tombstones and little kind of like ghosts with the sheets drawings. And I took those, and so I just wanted something that would fit the pen physically as far as the ring goes. And I thought that would, it wouldn't matter really how it was on the pen. All of them that I put together are a little bit different, actually, and I did that on purpose.
Isn't that sort of the nature of a handmade pen? Also, it's always going to be, isn't it? A little bit different. I mean, that's what the claim is.
Well, yeah, because I was going to tell about the things that people won't know about it, like the inside of the clip. This little thing, whatever that's called, is actually
I don't know what it's called. The ball, I guess.
There's like a little tombstone in there that says on it. That you would just never know. But I just sent Jonathan the picture of like, what are those, like CAD or some sort of technical?
Yeah, I use Blender 3D, actually. It's a free 3D design software that another pen maker turned me on to back in 2019. I was able to make the software, make the CAD files myself on my computer with Blender. But I send those to a casting company. They take the 3D files, 3D print them in wax or some kind of resin that they can do the casting around and melt it out. Then they pour the brass like they would, in any art studio, and then they rhodium plate it after they buff it and clean it up, and then send it to me all finished. It takes about a month and a half, depending on how much work I send them to create for me.
Basically you're creating the body of the pen, but the nib, of course, is you have to again also outsource that. I mean, that's the same as most of pen even the big pen manufacturers. Leonardo, Delta, Visconti, they use Yovo and Bach. Conway Stewart has used Yovo and Bach. We all use the same nibs. The only difference is the bigger companies can't afford to have the nib makers put their logo stamped into the nib, or maybe they'll commission a custom curvature of the nib.
It's the tuning
You
that makes a
also,
good nib, though.
what's nice about getting a pen from you is that you also test it out, don't you, and make sure that
Yeah,
it
yeah.
writes.
Every
Which
nib has to be tuned and tested first.
So anyway, that's a really terrific thing. So I think that's very interesting. The other thing I was going to say about ghost pens, and it's a funny thing, you know, there's so many different ways of collecting pens and peculiarities about this particular thing about collecting pens. And one of the things I find very strange is that people don't, that if somebody's name is on the pen, right, if it's engraved on the pen, it usually lowers the value of the pen. Well, I actually not only does it not bother me, I actually kind of like it. I probably should be more aggressive about it and really go out of my way to find pens that have things written up. But one of the things I keep saying to people, or like on my podcast, is it makes me feel like that I have the ghost of the person in the pen, right?
Yeah,
that's the other reason why I love the idea of buying pens from people like you. I just think it's fantastic that not only do I get to have a pen, but I get to know the person who made it. I mean, there aren't a lot of things like that, and it's something you can use every day. I just think that's incredible. That's one of the wonders of the thing, or that you can have this kind of relationship.
So I'm very happy with how it turned out. Really happy with how it turned out.
Do you have, this is the kind of question they always ask. Are there any plans for another collaboration in the works?
Maybe.
We can do another one in the future. I'd be happy to.
Does it feel good in the hand? Is it nice to write with?
For me,
I'll let you answer.
I was nervous about that because fountain pens can be a bit much or they can be too little for the size of my hand, which I don't know, I would say I'm 5'10". I would say it's an average size hand. It feels great, and I draw with it all the time. And I do a lot of drawings in these reflections notebooks, and just kind of everything is in here for me. And it just I haven't once had it leak or get caught up or repeat or do anything. It really, however you tuned it, it works fantastic. It's like one of the most reliable pens. And the coolest thing is it's got my artwork on it. So there are certain pens that are like, you like them, but they're just absolutely terrible. They fill up with paper. They bleed all over you. This one has been just like, it's as reliable as when I used that TWSBI to do that graphic novel. I used it because it was like totally reliable, never leaked. The line was consistent the whole time. It's the same thing with this one. It's just like absolutely good. It's just a good tool to use.
Oh, that's good.
Awesome.
That's good to hear. I mean, the danger of making a pen that is such a beautiful work of art is that, as you know, a lot of people are not going to use it. That's what the ironies. Then it becomes a collector's item. And then there are people, which kind of drives me crazy. I hate the idea of people buying pens and they don't use them. It's like if you have a sports car, you don't drive it,
Yeah, functional jewelry.
I think it drives, it's one of the reasons why a lot of these really high-end pens actually don't write, because guess what? Nobody actually uses them to write with, because they never have to write more than Yeah, right.
And even if they do write well, some of them are so huge and awkward and unbalanced and ungainly that you wouldn't want to for more than a signature or a line or two.
Right. They're Fabergé eggs. That's basically what they are. They're meant to be items, which is itself, a tradition and an interesting thing, but it's different than what makes it exciting for me. So happy Halloween. Thank you, Sean and Jamison, for talking with me and for making this great pen. As always, please subscribe. I'm going to do a writing sample, and then I did a cute little drawing. I think it's a cute little drawing of Sean and Jamison in the pumpkin patch waiting for the great pumpkin, using my pen, which is number 2 of the ghost pen with a stub nib. Don't forget to subscribe. It's the way to support the channel. We're at around 600 subscribers. I really would like to have 1,000 subscribers. That would be great. So please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And please, if you want to support projects like this, order your pen from Sean Newton. Support the Newton Penn Scholarship Fund, Sean's terrific philanthropy.
Goodbye, my darling.
Okay, this is again a stub nib that's on the Ghost pen. I'm using Waterman Serenity Blue, and it's quite nice wet. You're getting the different line variations of a stub nib, which I really like the expressiveness of it. And yet, Sean has tuned the pen so that writes very nicely. These are certainly the times that try men's souls right now. And here I am doing a drawing of Sean and Jamie using the pen and setting it in the land of peanuts and the pumpkin patch where the great pumpkin comes, or at least Charlie Brown is always waiting for him to come. He actually never comes, like waiting for Godot, I guess.